Look at that. I think we're on.
We are. Get your mug up. Come on.
Well, mugs up. Yeah, good. I want to kick this session off with the words of one of the great British scholars of our time, which is, "Don't drink coffee, I drink tea, my dear." There's an accent when I talk, and because it's a British takeover of the rising tide community. And I'm very, very privileged to be joined by the rest of the UK's finest boy band, with Adam and Scott. We're going to do a British takeover of hospitality. But if you're listening now, that's because you're watching on YouTube, LinkedIn, or Facebook. If you're on the live stream, please join the chat. We'd love to hear from you. We're going to be talking all things, not British, although we could do, because there's loads of great things we could talk about. But we're going to be talking about hospitality from around the world and our kind of things that we've learned about it and what we can bring into our own businesses and communities from what we've seen and done abroad. So a quick introduction. Hello, I'm Richard. I run a business called Richard Solutions that lives and dies by a mantra of don't be boring. And that manifests in coaching, mentoring, consultancy, branding, all good things. But look, let's meet the rest of the British boy band. Adam, who's on lead vocals and guitar. Adam, do you want to introduce yourself and maybe share a story about one of your favourite bits of hospitality from, well, either Britain or the rest of the world?
Hi guys, I'm Adam, the Wi-Fi guy. I am the founder of Captive Wi-Fi. We help your customers collect first-party data in a better way and convert into loyalty. And we've just launched Black Sheep Coffee in Dallas, Texas. They got 3 locations, so I'm really excited to have Texas on board. They literally went live about an hour ago. So UK team went out there. They couldn't get water from anywhere because no one understood their northern accent because their IT team were up north. So they really struggled to get any form of water in America. So all fizzy drinks. But that's me. Hospitality wise, to be fair, it's a Scot thing for me really, because the F&B inside hotels, I went to some amazing hotels last Christmas in Thailand and was treated like a king. They knew all our preferences and it was just unbelievable. I've only been there once before and it was an amazing experience. So hospitality wise for me, I think the hotels are really doing a great job. Outside the UK and some inside the UK. And one story I'll give you is there is an amazing hotel in Soho, which Scott likes as well, called the Broadwick Hotel, one of our clients too. I went there once and then didn't go back for about 3 months, walked in and the guy knew me by my first name. I'd never stayed there. I'd only gone to have a meeting and the guy at the front door with his hat on, looking proper posh, said to me, "Welcome back, Adam. You got the same meeting in the same place?" And I was just in awe because it's never happened. That was like months, so it's never happened. To be fair, bald, beard. There's quite a few of us out there, but that piece of hospitality for me was top notch.
And I think there's one of those things. I mean, we do joke about service standards in the UK, and I think in fairness, over the last 20 years, they've really, really improved. And I know some of our American friends, when they come over to the UK, will be like, really? But no, it has improved. I know we've all had sort of various kind of misadventures and missteps with them. But I think in general, hospitality and stuff like that in the UK, outside of the very best hotels and restaurants, is improving, for sure. But somebody who we know is a big fan of quality service and hospitality is our friend from the north, Mr. Turner. Good evening. Scott, do you want to introduce yourself and tell us a hospitality story from around the world in the UK?
Yeah, absolutely. So hello, everyone. My name is Scot Turner. I'm the founder of Auden Hospitality. I grew up in hotels, 15 years in some of the best brands in the world. And in 2015, I decided to throw it all away and go work in independent restaurants and see the world. 14 countries later, 3 continents, running 85 restaurants, total annual revenue of $175 million. I decided to do it once again because I saw a real opportunity, because the mindset of restaurateurs was very different to that I learned in hotels. So I decided to go back into hotels with that restaurateur mindset, bring some bold and exciting conversations with hoteliers to create some really good restaurants and bars within a hotel environment. So we work Europe, UK. We're about to go out to Kenya next week to do a project in Nairobi.
Nice.
So we're heading over to Africa, and we've got a couple of bits bubbling away in my old stomping ground in the sandpit, which is Dubai. So yeah, 14 countries. I could tell you a lot. I'm not going to tell you a travel tip on this one. Maybe we'll come back to one of my travel tips. I'm going to tell you the day about when I served the Queen.
Oh, whoa. Now, we've had some big special guests on this program, but you've just dropped the Queen bomb. I mean, I'm lucky I've sung the national anthem to her. Luckily, there were another 300 people in the room, which kind of drowned me out. So come on, when you said you said this is big. Are we talking Queen Elizabeth or Freddie Mercury?
We're talking Queen Elizabeth II.
Okay. Were you nervous?
Elizabeth II. Was I nervous? Absolutely. But I wasn't as nervous as... So there was only 3 of us in the hotel I was working with at the time that knew the Queen was coming. She was coming for Sunday lunch. She was coming to celebrate her cousin's 94th birthday. And every Sunday we used to have this choir that used to sing at afternoon tea during Christmas time. So obviously, we couldn't tell anyone. It got close to when the Queen was coming. We got wind that she was coming from the castle and all the rest of it. She drove herself in the Land Rover with Prince Philip. And we've got this beautiful picture on CCTV of this little lady with a bonnet on, leaving the estate after Prince Philip had one too many drinks. She was driving the old Land Rover. So we came in. I had to go downstairs and tell this choir that they were going to be singing for the Queen. Right. So I went downstairs. They were all getting ready, pulled them aside. I said, listen, we need to tell you something, because when it happens, you have to keep singing. You can't be shocked. For those people who are watching, the chance to meet the Queen is like a once in a lifetime thing.
Did you do the full Del Boy and be like, play it cool, Rodders?
Play it cool. I've met her 3 times. So we told them. One of them fainted, which is obviously a good thing to do.
Wait, so your management style, Scott?
Honestly, we had no. Listen, honestly, it was brilliant. We reserved the men. She the old adage that she has 2 parts Dubonnet, 1 part gin over ice is exactly the drink she used to drink. Prince Philip was drinking Bacardi and tomato juice. They were all sitting around. It was like a family, all looking at old pictures and everything. They went in for dinner, and then people were checking into the hotel and all the rest of it. And out walked the Queen. The choir was singing in front, and she turned to me and she said, "Is the choir local?" I said, "Yes, ma'am. The choir's from Windsor. It's one of the Windsor choir." She said, "Oh, that must be one of the ones that I hear out of the window in the castle." No word of a lie.
Hang on a sec. There's
Past time.
There's a lot to unpick there, because, first of all, there's a rumor that the Queen never travels with money. So how did she pay for her food?
It was all on account, of course. Look, see? So now I've got this frame of the day. I can't show you where it was. Keeping it on anonymity.
Did she tip? Did she give you a tip?
Did she? No, the Queen doesn't.
Yeah, the weather.
Can I tell you another thing as well? Tell you another thing. There's always a bedroom wherever she goes. Oh, she went. There was always a bedroom reserved for where she would go and have a wee.
Yes, I've heard this story.
Right, and it's true. We always had to have a bedroom that had a security guard on it for the whole time she was there. And we had her at this particular hotel 3 times. She never went to go to the toilet.
And you,
so the thing of
you're saying the Queen never wheezes
is absolutely true. The Queen never wheezes in public, only on her own toilet. So there you go. That's my it's better than travel, right? If we're going to do a British takeover, I should tell you about the day I served the Queen. There we go.
I mean,
moving swiftly on.
That is a remarkable story, because you talk about British hospitality and you see those kind of royal dinners at Windsor, and you just think, well, we need to get an invitation for that, lads. Definitely.
I did hear a rumor. This is an interesting story. I don't know if it's true, but a colleague of mine was buying a client in Mayfair, and it was the first house with a moving room, which is the first lift back in the day. It was a 3-floor sort of news house in Mayfair, and he owned the guy owns Aqua Restaurants, so he's got some money, and he was told by the original owner that the Queen often visited that property, and she would come to see the room that would move, and it was basically, obviously a slightly larger lift with chairs in it and stuff, and the pulley would go up and down, and she'd come out of the room, and she would nod at little things that she would see as she walked out, and her assistants would walk past, and the owner of the house would give it to the Queen. So she would nod and go, and it was just that rule was there. And he said that when he looked to buy the house, that was the story he was given, and it was the first house with moving rooms.
That's
a lift.
You see, if you're going to start, you've got to start at a high place, and you can't get higher than the Queen.
Nope.
And I had a really nice story about American hospitality, but Scott's totally ruined it with his Queen story.
But I got one more before you do that. Actually,
go on.
My office is owned by the Royal Society of Musicians, and about 4 years ago, this guy came down the stairs and said to our team, "Guys, you can't leave the office now." And they went, "What do you mean? What do you mean we can't leave the office?" Guy in a suit, and we looked out the window. There's like three big security vans, and it turned out that Prince, now King Charles, was unveiling a plaque for his birthday upstairs, and I wasn't allowed to go upstairs and say, "Hello, mate. How are you? How you doing?"
Because there were like
15 people. It would have been awesome. I didn't even have a podcast, but that would have been great, wouldn't it? But we weren't allowed to leave. But he did put a plaque on the floor above us. So there you go. Another little tip for you. Nothing hospitality driven.
We want to see that. We want to see that plaque on LinkedIn next week.
I'll see if I can go. Yeah.
I want to see the podcast episode where Adam asked the king what his bandwidth speed is in the palace.
It's coming.
I'm going to share my American hospitality story just because it's not as good as Scott's. But then what we'll do is we'll invite everybody else in to share. And if you're listening in and want to join, the conversation topic says we want to hear great hospitality stories from abroad, preferably the UK, obviously. And then we'll see what we can learn from them. And my hospitality story, I went to a beautiful village called Lynchburg in Tennessee and went to this boarding house where I had lunch. And there's a person on digital hospitality, Dean LeBay. He's got this wonderful kind of southern drawl. I really like listening to Dean. And I was in Tennessee, and they sat us at these tables in this beautiful kind of old kind of southern building. And they brought out all local dishes. And we're on these long tables with sort of chicken and apple sauce and all these other things. And okra and lots of American words I can't pronounce. I'm not going to attempt to. And they had these retired sort of ladies and gentlemen who were just that real rich kind of southern hospitality, explaining all the dishes, kind of the history of the town, the house, the people that cooked it. Then they brought up all the chefs and introduced them, and it was about supporting young people. And it was just, the food was fantastic, but the actual hospitality and the kind of warmth of like the people there were people from all over the States, all over the world visiting this place, and the warmth of the local people in welcoming us is something that I'll remember, for the rest of my life. And I think there's a little bit where the US do hospitality very, very well, apart from American Airlines. What is it? American Airlines, United, Delta, you rubbish. Seriously. And let's not even mention Spirit and Southwestern. Awful. But Southern hospitality in Tennessee, Madame Mary Bobo's boarding house was just, for me, really, really special, and a benchmark of just how fantastic local hospitality can be, and some of the best I've ever had in the world. So well done, people of Tennessee.
Do you know what though? It's one of the. I know we got to get other people up, but it's one of the things, isn't it, about when you go abroad or you go somewhere new. And we had it when Elizabeth, who was going to join the call, came to London. There's a pride of welcoming people to where you're from. And showing them around. Like, I think about some of the amazing places we've been, when we've been opening restaurants. Like, we went to Beirut, and the guys there just took us out to show us everything that was amazing about Lebanon. And some of the experiences that you get when you get down into like the local neighborhoods, the service, the way you're treated, the way people want to show how great things are. It's something that's just common across pretty much every city you go to when you go and see someone who's welcoming you to that place. And I think that's what's amazing about coming on calls like this and meeting people, going on LinkedIn, meeting people, having a network further than where you are. It's just that ability to see and other places and be welcome to other places. It really shows how small a world it can be.
Yeah, and I think hospitality done well. And you're right, there's that sense of pride in your country and wanting to show people those good bits. And, you know, I always go back to airlines. I remember flying Malaysian Airlines, and there was the welcome and the whole they were really proud to be Malaysian. They wanted to, oh, you've got to try this chicken satay or this nasi lemak. And there was this kind of real richness and warmth before you even arrived there. And I think that pride is something that's really, really interesting. I wonder, you know, when you said that, you did make me think about when we had breakfast with Elizabeth and James in London. And it's almost that, how can you make that the normal in your business? And I think what's really interesting is, you know, often you'll go into a business, and I make an effort for the Queen when she turns up. But how can you do that for every single customer?
100%. Sounds like a good time to bring people up to me.
Yeah, let's bring some people up. Stover, if you're listening in, we'd love some guests to talk about their hospitality. Laura's here.
He's probably sitting there in the background criticising your British playlist. You need to do the plug.
Yes, well, before we go to our guest, one of the things we did is we've created a playlist of British music for this, because we believe that Britain has incredible culture, art, and comedy, you know, food. I know some of our American friends will be like, food, really? Trust me, it's got better. But we've created a playlist, and Stover, if you could pin it in the chat, where we put a whole heap of British artists. Just click on the playlist. It's absolutely free. There's 2 songs by some incredible artists and the Spice Girls. All British only. So look, let's welcome some guests up. I think Laura's disappeared. So we'll go via our little wall. It's like the Wonder Wall here. Elizabeth, welcome. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us about amazing hospitality you've had in a country other than America?
Yes. So my name is Elizabeth Doss. I am a motion graphic designer, but I specialize in social media consultancy around animated GIFs, as well as content creation. And I love helping people bring joy back to the engagement side of social media. So if you're interested, hit me up. I'm Izzy Inc. on all the platforms. So yes, I was super excited for this conversation because last year, I had told James on my 40th, by my 40th birthday, I wanted my first Europe trip. And because we've traveled a lot, my parents lead trips to Israel. And so for years, that was where we went I've been to Israel over 12 times, helping lead groups of people. But, and we do the hospitality on that side, no, that's not what I meant. Israel is wonderful. That's not what I meant. Where I'm not being treated to the hospitality. I'm taking care of people on those types of trips. That's what I mean. But no, I wanted to say that. The pandemic happened, so it didn't happen in time for that. But then I found out that my good friend who I went to college with, his name is Norman Reinhardt. He is an international opera singer, and he was performing at the London Coliseum. He had the leading role in Mozart's Magic Flute, and so James and I were like, you know what? It's time. And Richard had been telling me, because he's been mentoring me in my business for a while, to have something that you're looking forward to, so that when you get in the sludge monster trudging of the daily grind, you can say, no, but I have this thing. I need to finish this email because it gets me to that goal. And so having some way to treat yourself, it may not be a trip to Europe, but for us, it was something to aim towards. And so I got the amazing opportunity to get to meet up with Richard and Scott. And if Adam and I had just connected that like just a week or two beforehand, I'm sure we would have worked out something as well. But it was really funny because I knew I wanted to see Richard. I needed to make that happen. And so I told him we would come to him, and he forbade me. Yes, forbade me to come to Corby for.
Right. There's a reason for this, and I'm going to make this really, really clear to everybody listening in, right? So you've just heard here a real American saying they've never been to Europe before. Corby would be the equivalent of Pittsburgh, right? So you imagine somebody, or even I'm going to go even harsher, Cleveland, but with less stuff to do. Jason, you know the truth, right? But you imagine a European. The first ever visit to America was quick. Now I can't do that one. Their first ever visit was Pittsburgh. You wouldn't let them do it. So I said to Elizabeth, "You are not meeting me in Corby. It's just not happening." Or Northamptonshire, for that matter. The UK has so many beautiful, beautiful, beautiful counties or states, as you guys would call them. But you're not meeting me in Northamptonshire. So we did something far more interesting.
We did. So we actually met in Oxford at the Bodleian Library, which is one of the oldest libraries in the world. And Oxford was just amazing. And what I have two quick stories from that experience. One, there is no hospitality like Richard Liverman being your tour guide for the day in Oxford, and all the things that he knew that we would love, including a 2-mile hike to Tolkien's house. And it was completely covered in construction scaffolding and equipment. It was in the middle of the night, and we're walking down the road. So and we got there and we just stood outside of it and looked at it and just started laughing. This was what we did. But it was a lot of fun. But no, I just want to be thankful for that. But we went to the Randolph Hotel there in Oxford, and Lewis Carroll, who wrote Alice in Wonderland, went to Oxford, and so the entire lobby and restaurant is themed to Alice in Wonderland. But what was funny is it actually was, so Richard scheduled my first afternoon tea, and it was a Mad Hatter's situation. It was so funny because they were trying so hard to be so hospitable, but
how awful was the service?
So please, Richard, tell them about the butter.
So afternoon tea, you need to have a scone with cream and jam. And for Scott and Adam, do you go jam first then cream? Just a tricky one there. Very, very British problem there.
Always jam then cream.
Adam's like, no, cream then jam.
Adam's face.
Right.
Cream then jam, always.
This is major British problems. They're like, this is what causes political differences in our country. But before we did the scones, we said, can we get some butter? So we said to the waiter, who eventually came over, and bear in mind, it was reasonably quiet. We said, excuse me, can we get some butter, please? And he came back with this tray, and it was like a drink tray full of all the breakfast butters in those little packets, and just dumped it on the table and walked off. I was like, oh no. But it just made something really bonkers more bonkers. But that's not a good example of hospitality.
Sorry. We only needed 3 butters. We didn't need all of them. But it was so fun. They were pink tufted couches. There were little teapots. It was a Mad Hatter tea party situation, and it was so delightful to get to sit down with Richard for that. But no, I was trying to think of a story of hospitality there in Oxford. We'd walked around the city, and we'd stopped in a gift shop, and Richard calls it the most expensive gift shop in Oxford. But anyway, the lady at the counter was so kind, and she told us that there was a new the reason I'm telling you this is to ask the locals. When you're in places, they know more about what's going on than anybody. But she let us know that there was going to be I can't think of the word, an event opening up the next day. And we were planning on leaving that next morning to drive through the countryside on our way back to London. But when she told us, both James and I kind of stopped and said, you know what, I think we're going to spend the morning here. And so because we did that, it was an exhibit in one of the libraries where they had pulled manuscripts from people editing their own manuscripts. So we're getting to see the handwriting of Ian Fleming, who wrote James Bond, and seeing what he crossed out and what he kept. Same with Yeats, T.S. Eliot, Shelley, Jane Austen, Tolkien. It shows his sketches while he's writing parts of Mordor. He had sketched in the mountains and the volcanoes and the other stuff, and you get to get up close and see someone's process. Back in the day, they used to cut up the paper to re-edit it. Anyway, it was just really fascinating. But the reason I'm bringing that particular story up is that it happened to be in a conversation with the woman that was running the gift shop. I don't think we bought anything, but to let us know that, to say that. And same with Scott, like he really hooked me up on Google Maps. So if you're ever heading to a country and you can't necessarily meet up with that person, get their recommendation. So Scott made me a Google Maps list and tagged places in London and in Paris because we were headed there afterwards. And so we got to map out where the really good food was, and he even mapped it out by cost effectiveness. And so, because I remember we went to like the French Bastards there in Paris that had like an amazing sandwich and like yummy breads. But anyway, so make sure you tap into your network and your friends to like get the recommendations. Anyway, I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. We look forward to your next trip to London, where we'll get you a spicier curry next time.
Right. Oh, really quick though. Richard did tell me I had to have a dirty fry up, but apparently he doesn't count the one that I had at Caravan as a legitimate Caravan, the restaurant that we met up Scott and Richard from. It was too fancy for reals.
I'm going to get Adam and Scott to explain what is a proper dirty fry up, gents.
A proper dirty fry up is okay. So you have fried toast on the bottom, which is like sandwich bread that's put in the deep fat fryer and fried. That goes on the bottom. No need for butter on that baby. It's like loaded up with plenty of cholesterol. Then on top of that, you have your bacon and your sausage. Then you have your hash browns, black pudding, mushrooms, tomatoes, like cut in half, grilled on the thing, tomatoes, baked beans. Sometimes you have to have them on the side because you can't fit them on the plate. And then it depends where you're from in the country. Sometimes you'll have ketchup, Heinz. Sometimes you'll have brown sauce, HP sauce. Depends which way you go, what float your boats. And then no fancy scrambled eggs, poached eggs. That's out the window. Far too healthy. Fried eggs, sunny side up, cracked yolk on top. That's how you do it. That's how you do a proper fry up. And then you have what's called a builder's brew, which is a mug of proper Yorkshire tea, which you can sand a spoon up in because it's been stewed and stewed and stewed with the tiniest little drop of milk just in the top, just to take the edge off the tannins. And then you get that down you. Four little spoonfuls of sugar in there just to top it off.
You missed one thing. You missed one little thing. One little thing you missed, because sometimes in a traditional fry up, there's a little disc of something. What is that, Scott? A little disc of something called black pudding.
No, I said black pudding. That black pudding was in. So yeah, the place that we took Elizabeth is definitely, which was Jason, exactly. It's pretty similar to the place you took me in LA. Very much like that. Definitely not a greasy spoon with a full English breakfast. That's for sure. But it was close.
Well, you see this. Not only do you learn about great hospitality, but you learn about great food as well. I mean, that is the gift of joining the Rising Tide live podcast. And we're going to head over to Los Angeles. Jason, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a story about great hospitality that you've had anywhere in the world?
Jason Berkowitz from Cleveland to Los Angeles many years ago. So you're right. It's not the first place you go is Pittsburgh or Cleveland. Longtime restaurant operator, partner, founder of Arrow Up. We help restaurants level up their teams, satisfy compliance, and develop supervisors into leaders. Right now, I'm a board member of the Independent Hospitality Coalition, and we're really working with our LA restaurants that have been affected, first COVID, then the strike, and now all the fires that have gone on. So we're really working with the community to leverage resources and bills that are getting passed. And I think it's an incredible opportunity to highlight the hospitality of the community of Los Angeles and how restaurants were first and foremost there to help feed the front lines and workers and firefighters and everybody that was displaced. So what incredible hospitality is. You've got this industry that's been hit so hard, scraping for pennies and literally pulling out of their own pockets to feed everybody else. And just a sign of, and I've been on a lot of these calls and the board calls and community calls, and everyone says the same thing. It's who runs restaurants and owns restaurants. They're like, it's in our nature. It's in our blood. It's what we need to do. We need to jump in and help. We'll figure it out, afterwards, almost to the point that you overextend yourself and who's taking care of you. So I'm working greatly on helping to support the hospitality community who's supporting the community through hospitality. So Los Angeles, I think, Scott, we had the pleasure of dining together. You can see there's just cool vibe, great hospitality. What's great is you got a lot of actors out here, which some people say, they're not professional career people, but they come with a lot of personality, and that's fun. That's a huge part of hospitality, right? And so what I love is if you're a good manager and owner and you sort of encourage people to let their freak flags fly and be their own selves, that authentic character comes through. And I think that's such an important piece of where hospitality aligns with the food, because it's all attracting to each other and magnifying itself. So I think LA is an incredible place for hospitality, for food, for personality. I love it. I will transition across the pond, but it was a long time ago and probably far too obvious of a place for people to hear. But I remember I was 20 years old and I dined at Wagamama's, right? And so I can't tell you if it's common or not over there.
It's grown and grown into a chain.
It really has, right? And I tried it in Boston years later and didn't have the same vibe. But here's the point that I'm saying. What I loved was it was kind of my first experience where the queue, the experience begins in the queue. And this was the one specifically, in London. And I don't know how many locations there are now, but long wait up the steps. But when you walked in, immediately, what do you want to drink? What's going on? And the queue was just as much of the experience as when we went and sat down at the tables and started eating. See, I'm using the word queue for you over there, as we would say the line. So I'm trying to be relevant, right?
Jason, I'm proud of you.
Thank you, Richard. Just had to call it out. No nod at the beginning, but it's okay. Let me just do this as I wear my supportive, band, right? Bravo, who made the list for putting the Kinks on there. There's a great old saying, right? But who would you choose, the Stones or the Beatles? Kinks. So anyways, the cue and the idea of activating that was something that it's carried with me over in different places where even as a GM, I would pour out little toasters of champagne or whatever if they weren't drinkers while they were waiting for their table. Here's a little something, thank you, while you're waiting for us. And that the experience doesn't need to begin when you sit down at the table. The experience begins when you pull up to the valet or the security guard who's up front or the host stand, and really making sure at Tokayo, when people were waiting in line, we would run down with menus to increase the throughput, but I would have them walking out with agua frescas or little tasters of something, little shots of something, whatever it was, because that's the time for the experience. So it was London experience and London hospitality at 20 that stuck with me, that I've brought over across the pond throughout Los Angeles. And what's great about it, final is, one last point to then turn it over, is, well, now what you did, what the company did, what we do is we empower our team members to have something to offer somebody in a gift. Well, man, what a great opportunity to activate their experience, because you're not asking, you're offering. And with that, you get to just bring and build. And that's a great window and opportunity to open up the door for somebody to be themselves. So it's cool.
Oh, Jason, that's a great story. And Wagamama's has grown and grown. And what's interesting, there's another restaurant that's kind of exploded in London called Dishoom. I took Elizabeth there last year. I know Scott and Adam will know it well. And what's really interesting about Dishoom, I mean, us Brits, we love queuing. We love queuing and complaining about being in queues. And the only good queue is the one that helps 007. However, what's really interesting about the Dishoom queue, people will often be in the line for over an hour and they'll go out with little cups of chai tea.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting is how you saw it as almost the start of the experience. And I think that's one of the great things about travel is it kind of broadens the mind, opens up, and you go, that's a good idea. How can we do that? And I love the way you were saying that the queue is almost an opportunity to start the experience.
And to stand out above. How cool is it when there's an opportunity to exceed the way other people are doing it? So if everybody did it, then you just have to meet the moment as opposed to exceeding a moment that's so simple. Really, if you just give it a little bit of extra love, what an opportunity to go above and beyond. So I love that not everybody's doing it because we can do it and stand out and then, strengthen that bond.
That's very cool. Scott, what do you know about Wagamama's? Are they still doing stuff like that?
Wagamama's, no, it's changed a lot, isn't it? It's more like a high street casual dining chain, so it's lost a lot of that. I mean, Dishoom's the most obvious one that's doing it. I can't think of anyone really in London other than Dishoom who's doing the giveaways on the start. No,
But Wagamama's 20 years ago was really, really exciting.
Correct. Well, it's same as like Pizza Express, where it had the music and the jazz and all the rest. So you went there for pizza, cocktails, and music. It was like very similar, wasn't it? And then it obviously gets rolled out and loses it somewhat and loses a little bit of the magic that went into the original one, making it so popular. It's always sad when you see that, isn't it? But it's a great example, isn't it, of those little touches you can do before. And after, I think, like back to Jason's point, like looking at how it can be so simple. How many times do you leave restaurants now and you don't get a goodbye? Just a simple goodbye from people passing. Like it becomes
eye contact.
It's really irritating. I think that simple hospitality.
What's it called?
Sometimes so more powerful.
You would know this, Scott. What's a petit petit four is pre, right? Or an amuse-bouche is pre. I remember at Kraft, we would hand them, what is it when you give them something to leave the door? And we would bake them something or a muffin or something to go out the door so that in the morning they would have it and think of us. What's that called?
Yeah, that's the petit four, isn't it? The amuse-bouches start petit fours at the end, isn't it?
There it is.
It's the little sweets. Yeah, okay,
Cool.
exactly.
It's what?
That was Stover, our producer, suggesting it's fourth meal. I think he's gone all Hobbit on us.
Oh, God stepped in. Hello, Stover.
Thanks, guys. Chris, welcome to Digital Hospitality. It would be great if you could introduce yourself and let us know some sort of global hospitality story that's inspired you. And feel free to use as many British words as you can. We have been all evening.
I'll try. Thank you, Richard. Hello, everyone. I think in your honor, and because I knew I was going to be doing this today, I am a get up in the morning and love strong coffee kind of guy. But today my wife was surprised. We had pots of tea. We had tea with our morning pastries. By God, I was getting in the mood. Okay. Chris Triple, I'm a principal with the Restaurant Clinic. We're a small, active leadership development group providing field advisory for independent restaurants that are growing. I'm also a active contributor to restaurantowner.com and develop educational content for that learning website, and still host their podcast, Corner Booth, which is a ball getting to interview restaurant entrepreneurs around the world. And anyway, that's a ton of fun. When it comes to hospitality, I want to key in on a couple of things we've heard already. I think Elizabeth made a great point when she talked about the best hospitality, the most memorable experiences typically come when you connect with the locals where you travel. And that's my best story. Years ago, when my wife and I went to Italy, I think we had the best hospitality, and it wasn't one instance. It was because we connected with a local. Now, that was because I had a long-running working relationship with Johnny Carrabba of the Carrabba Italian Restaurants. They're clients, and his uncle, Damian Mendola, who had a house in Tuscany. So when he knew I was going, he contacted a few people, and so it became a memorable trip before I got there. Fabrizio Romero in Rome is hospitality redefined. You know, he's what everyone wants to do. He's what Jason is talking about when you want to say, not just meet what people do, but exceed expectations. I was introduced to him before we landed. He was a chef, but not practicing. He used to own restaurants, but didn't. Instead, he owned a personal tour, a team of drivers. So Fabrizio Romero met us at the airport, and I had hospitality over and above expectations throughout our trip in Italy. And I think it was because of him. We got connected to the small local restaurants. When we wanted to tour things, we would go in the back door. We would tour Pompeii on a day where he knew somebody there that would meet us at the employee entrance and give us a tour. So it's just hard to talk about hospitality around the world without that trip coming up. That's an unusual, I know, that is not the kind of thing that you might typically get when you're traveling. But I think it goes to the point that when you connect with locals or you have friends introduce you to other friends in the industry, you wind up seeing what won't be seen. So that worked in Rome. That worked when we drove through the countryside. That worked with his partners in through Tuscany, you know, when we stayed there. And so the whole trip was memorable. We got to meet the small independent restaurant operators that would seat us in the kitchen so we could talk to staff while we were having our meal. And it was, incredibly friendly people that we met. We had a lot of friends that came from that trip. So it's hard to talk about, over and above hospitality examples or memorable hospitality without that one coming. So I'm very, very thankful for those introductions because that made the trip. Now, speaking of London, this is going to be incredibly hard, I know, for you guys to hear. I would love to go to London to spend time and actually enjoy London. I've had 4 trips to London and have never really gotten to visit London. It was all for work. It was when I was working with various Middle East clients that we would meet in London a lot. That's where they did a lot of their financial business. They had homes outside the city. So you get picked up in the airport, you blast through the city, you go to their home. I mean, it's beautiful, but you stay there. You have 4 days of work and then you fly back. So, although that was tremendous for business, I don't have an interesting London trip yet. So
Well,
I know I'll get smacked.
I'll tell you what, Chris, how about we change that? And I'm going to, you see, one of the things I've really enjoyed over the past couple of years is getting to know Adam and Scott. And last week I met Adam for the first time in person. We had breakfast together in London. But one of the things I picked up from the pair of them is they're very good at recommendations. So I'm going to flip that round. So Adam and Scott, a recommendation from both of you for things to make Chris's next trip to London interesting and fun, whether it be food or location. Chris, I'm going to be really amusing. And there is a walking tour of London. I'm sure you've heard the story of Jack the Ripper.
Yeah.
You can do a walking tour of where Jack the Ripper committed all his crimes. And that would definitely make London interesting. I'm going to give Adam and Scott the opportunity to do something slightly less morbid.
Wow. How do you follow that? The Queen and Jack the Ripper in one episode. Gee whiz, I never thought I'd hear the day.
You see, that's what happens when they leave us the keys to the car.
Yeah, exactly. For anyone with restaurant in their blood, I would say you should head down to Borough Market, which is kind of the foodie market of London. It's where all like the street traders are from a food perspective. It's where all like the grocers, the butchers, that type of thing is as well. You can go there. There's like guys who are making beautiful pearl barley risotto with mushrooms. The mushrooms are all fresh. It comes off the stall. You can buy the mushrooms, get the risotto. There's the paella guys. There's some amazing restaurants around that area as well, and you can get one of the best sausage butties in town from one of the stalls in Borough Market as well.
We'll come
ketchup.
back. We'll come back to the word butty very
I
soon.
would recommend going to see Borough Market. It's honestly, it's like food. It's foodie heaven. You can spend a fortune. It's got bands and stuff like that on through the day on a weekend and stuff like that. It's really well curated. It's really really cool to cool
And
to see.
I went and had dinner in a restaurant there that you recommended before. The Mexican one, the beautiful El Pastor.
El Pastor. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
Adam, quick suggestion for to make London great again, putting the great back into Britain.
He's on mute. Adam, you're on mute. You're on mute.
Adam, unmute and tell us something great about Britain.
So probably not for the wallet budget, but if you're in Borough Market and you want to walk 10 minutes down the road, pop up to Aqua in the Shard, which is 33rd floor of the Shard. Go to the bar, have a drink. Make sure, if you're a guy, do a wee in the men's toilets because you're weeing over London, which is pretty cool because the urinals are literally this big. But the views are amazing. The food is also amazing there, but don't pay £20 to go up the top and look around. Go to Aqua or Oblix. Those two restaurants are both awesome. But Aqua has an amazing bar, and I would strongly recommend having a look at that. My other one would be Seven Dials Market, which is an amazing food hall in Covent Garden. It was originally a banana warehouse back in the day. Then it became a super dry shop. And it's now an amazing food hall, 1,800 capacity, loads of food traders in there, amazing food. So Seven Dials Market is probably one of my favorites.
Okay.
That's a great shout. That's a great shout.
If my wife was participating, she would say that she's already enjoyed London because on one of the business trips she went and then she got to do an all-day shopping tour. So of course that was her big deal. And one of her most favorite memories is, I don't know what part of London she was in, but she was able to go to the original Joe Malone fragrance store. And she was there when Joe Malone was there. Of course, she's a huge fan. She got pictures and bought fragrance. So, she's already had her hospitality moment. I, on the other hand, haven't been around. But I did want to mention real quick that I just recently finished Stanley Tucci's book, What I Ate in a Year. And, of course, you guys probably know he's been living in London for, 4 or 5 years living with Felicity. His stories are wonderful. It's such an easy read. He's one of my favorite people, but he speaks really highly of little towns, special markets, restaurants he likes, chefs he met, all about London and areas around London. So you get a big vote from the American now living there.
Brilliant stuff. Yes, I saw him on a recent episode of Top Jaw and he was excellent. We posted those links in the chat. Seven Dials Market is one of my favorite places. I took Elizabeth and got her to take a picture of me with a massive banana between my legs. A story for another day. It's true. Maxim, welcome. Would you like to introduce yourself? Let us know where you are in the world and tell us a story about hospitality somewhere around the world.
Hello, everyone. I'm in San Jose. Actually, I'm Russian. I came from Russia to United States, to Silicon Valley, to chase my American dream with my AI startup for restaurants last autumn. Actually, I'm pretty new here. I texted to Shawn, owner of Cali Barbecue, in LinkedIn, and we had a conversation together, and he told me about this podcast, so that's how I'm here. If we're talking about hospitality, well, last weekend I've been in Los Angeles. I had a few meetings with our current clients, pretty high-end restaurants in Beverly Hills, and a couple of potential clients. And I was surprised how, I had the meetings with general managers and partners, and all of them were surprisingly hospitable. All of them invite me for a dinner or lunch, dependable what time I came to them. And I ordered my meal, and all of them just sit there. We already finished our business conversation, finish our small talk. I saw that they had a lot of work to do, but all of them sat with me and wait until I finish my meal. And of course, they pay for it. I left good, good tips, but still they take care about the whole meal. And it was surprisingly for me because they were really busy people, but all of them just sit there and wait until I finish my meal. That was awesome. I love it. That would be my story.
That's a great story. And I think that warm welcome that people give you makes such a difference. And I think it's one of those things that's so simple. And it's almost like somebody was saying earlier about that goodbye or that starting good service from the minute you get in the queue. And I think that warmth is something that, you know, makes hospitality really, really good. And what a nice story to be able to share. Thank you for that. And welcome to the community.
Thanks.
Eric, welcome. Do you want to let us know what it is you do and tell us a great hospitality story from somewhere different to where you live?
Hi, guys. I'm Eric Farrell. I run the wordkitchen.com. I cook up the word so you can keep cooking. I'm here for the hospitality industry because I think there's a big need for better words and better storytelling. So that's why I'm here. I don't know where to start. I've got so many stories, but I've got so many bones to pick with you guys. First of all, you're making up words. What in the world is a buddy? But yet you can put an L in paella? Come on. How come the Brits get away with this stuff? And yeah, I know I'm going to be the rebel and I'm going to show up with this. But it's okay. Look, English breakfast tea. I'm okay. No, I'm just kidding. Hospitality around the world for me is tough because I've never been out of the country. I'm one of those rare people in this community that hasn't traveled worldwide. But I think you can tell a lot about hospitality around the world from the people that relocate it to America. And I've experienced a lot of that. Some funny ones. A lot of mine are going to go Asian because everything for me, I gravitate back toward Asian food. There's a Korean place in Indianapolis called Mama's. And the last time I went there, there were 4 or 5 of us. We had a couple of kids and it was noisy. We were talking too much and they get fussy and maternal if you are cooking wrong. If you've got meat on that little grill, this lady came over, like put her hand on my chest, pushed me back into the seat and said, no, it's okay. You keep talking. I'll cook for you. Basically like grandma saying, you're going to screw this up, but it's okay. I'm going to serve you anyway. And I thought that was hilarious. So indicative of the Korean culture that I've experienced. Sorry, I'm looking at my notes. I wrote down a couple of these. One of the best examples of hospitality that I've experienced, I guess, that wasn't on American soil was 30,000 feet up. My wife and I were on our way back from Indiana after honeymooning in California. I think it was Southwest Airlines. I just texted my wife to find out, but because I don't remember, she would know. We got talking to one of the flight attendants, and he was so interested in us, this brand new young married couple, and we got talking faith with him, and he skipped his job for like 10 minutes and just stood there and talked to us, and it was so amazing. And just before we got off the plane, he came over to our row and handed us a bag full of gifts and a bottle of wine we definitely couldn't afford, and said, I want to stay here for a second and pray with you guys and bless your marriage, and please take these gifts. And it was so amazing. We talked about it for weeks. So there's my not on American soil story. And I got 2 more quick ones. I'll try to be quick because I can talk about this one for a while. There's a YouTube channel that I stumbled on. This girl in a small Chinese village. I don't know how big of a team she's got as videographers because the stuff is amazing. But she makes it look like we're just in a tiny, poor village and we have no resources. But she cooks for her whole family every day. And there was one episode where she starts, as the episode goes on, she starts feeding in clips of her grandparents and cooking with her teeny tiny microscopic grandmother. And you see through this story with no English in it, how she got influenced to serve her family so vigorously. I mean, some of the meals she makes take a whole day or 2 days to make. Like, talk about hospitality. She is spending her whole day building amazing meals for her family, and it was influenced by her grandmother. And by the end, there's this like sepia tone fade out into a stool with no one sitting on it. And then there's a picture of like, this was grandma's favorite stool. And I'll link it. You guys got to watch that episode. It was amazing, but it told the whole story of her interest in hospitality from the influence of her grandmother. And like, that story stuck with me. It's a story thing. All right, last one. Favorite hospitality moment that I've had in the last year. Hannah's Banh Mi. It's a small Vietnamese bistro in Indianapolis. It's been there for a while, but we just recently discovered it. We walked in with 3 fussy, hungry kids in tow, and all of a sudden, the owner, the chef's husband, came over to us and starts talking to us. And like within minutes, we had samples of stuff in our hands, and we were chatting up all kinds of things. And he said, what do you do? Why are you here? How'd you get here? He's asking all kinds of questions. I told him what I do, and he's like, oh, cool. See that girl over there in the corner? She's one of the biggest food influencers in Indianapolis. You should talk to her. I'm like, oh, neat. Well, here's my card. We keep talking. He's handing us samples of fresh pressed sugarcane juice to the kids. And while it was delicious, I was like, cool, thanks for getting my kids sugared up at 8 o'clock. Are you going to help with bedtime? That's going to be fun. And he said, oh, and by the way, do you like durian? You ever had that before? Yeah, I'm one of the weird ones. I do like durian. Cool. My wife just whipped up some durian sticky rice. You want to try it? Yeah, bring it on out. So he's like showering us with ridiculous hospitality before we even ordered. We go through ordering after all of his suggestions, of course. We get to the table. He's helping carry everything. And he comes back to talk to us like 10 times. And I made friends with this guy through this whole meal. And our middle child, super picky, did not like any of the food. And that's a real bummer. The place is called Hannah's Banh Mi. My daughter's name is Hannah. So she thought this place was built for her. And she didn't have a great experience because she didn't like any of the food. She's way too picky. And Jason, being the kind guy that he is, yes, his name's Jason. Sorry, I should have led with that, Berkowitz. He's like, don't worry about it. How about a grilled cheese, honey? You want a grilled cheese? I'll bring you a grilled cheese. Made her night. Like, that was back to being her restaurant. The hospitality at this place was legendary. And I have stayed in touch with this guy since. He emailed me before I even got home, and that led to several text conversations. And now I'm trying my best to funnel people to this restaurant because they take care of their people so well. Mm-hmm. But it ties back into, there's some Asian culture hospitality that I think is very different. Every culture has different types of hospitality. And having not been around the world, that's one that I've experienced the most. And
I think what's really nice about all your stories, Eric, is how they all involve humans. And I think what's fascinating, and I'm sure this will come up in conversation soon. I know Scott's recently recorded a podcast about robots, but there is a bit about hospitality. Is how do you put the human into hospitality? And all of your stories were very human-centric, and I'm sure we'll talk about robots again throughout the year. But I think what's fascinating about all your stories, they were tied together by human connection, whether it be at 30,000 feet or ground level. So thank you, Eric. Mm-hmm. Laura, good evening or good morning. It's lovely to see you. Where in the world are you? Would you like to introduce yourself and share a story about hospitality from around the world? I know I've been pitching for you to come to the UK. So, you know, you've got a number of Brits on here to help carry on the pitching, but over to you.
Thank you so much, Richard. And absolutely, coming to the UK is at the top of my list. It's on the plan for 2027, which I know is way out there, but hopefully I can get these recommendations again. And my name is Laura. I live in San Diego, and I'm in the business of showing up for my restaurant clients and bringing friends. And by friends, I mean 21 million expense account diners who are traveling for business and looking for great restaurants for dine-in, carry-out, ordering catering, and booking private events. My favorite hospitality story does happen in the US. I'd love to share that. And I don't know how we're doing on time, but then also I could share one about my first trip to Italy. So Richard, what do you want to hear first? Or do you want me to pick one?
Let's go Italy. Come on, we do America every week. We'll have a bit of
Okay,
Europe.
oh
Don't tell Shawn.
All
We won't
right,
tell
all right,
Shawn.
all right. Okay, so this goes with Shawn's mantra of be curious, get involved, and ask for help. And so during the pandemic, there was not a lot to do. My sister-in-law and I, and my brother and my husband, Eric, took Italian classes. And then my sister-in-law and I took cooking classes from a place in Italy called Tuscany. They were shut down, and so we're learning how to cook. We were putting out these amazing meals. I'm a terrible cook. I rarely cook, but this was so exciting. And we're done with our course, and my brother says, "Hey, how much time could you guys get off of work?" And 2 weeks in a row would be the absolute max for us. We Americans, we like to show up at work a lot, I guess. But yeah, that would be tough. So he said, "Okay, we want to take you." We booked a trip to Tuscany, and we want to take you. And I always wish that I was born to parents who took the adult children to Europe, and I was not born into that family. But somehow my big brother decided to do that. So that was incredible. When I walked in on the plane, I watched a video about truffle hunting dogs. There's a movie about it. If you haven't seen it, it's absolutely incredible. And I walk in, and just the view. So this goes to the importance of the environment. I think on our call Wednesday, somebody said they only care about the taste of the food. Was that someone in the room? I can't remember, but somebody was saying, "Hey, I don't really care what the environment is at the restaurant, but as long as the food's good, I'll go there." But for me, the environment and the feeling I get when I walk into a place is so incredibly important. And I got out this book to show you. I don't know if you can see this, but that was the view when I walked into this place. And then Lena is the person that's pouring the wine. So when we walked in, she welcomed us with a glass of wine, and I just started to cry because I had never seen anything so beautiful. I had never felt such warm hospitality. Somebody welcoming me with this beautiful, crisp glass of wine in this beautiful setting. And after a long day of travel, it just set the tone for the entire trip. And there were experience after experience, as Chris shared earlier about the hospitality in Italy and the idea of the 0-kilometer meal, where absolutely everything is sourced within a kilometer of the restaurant. Nothing is imported at all. The cheese, the olive oil, every single item that goes into that meal is from the providers in their immediate community, and they're supporting each other instead of importing. And I thought that was so beautiful. And then go ahead, Richard.
Well, it's just when you were saying that, and I think it's really interesting what makes great restaurants and great hospitality. And I think you just pulled loads of different things into that one experience. It's the warmth of the welcome, great food, stories, which is something that I think lots of restaurants forget to do, is tell stories. And, the fact that everything's from 1 kilometer of it. And we all know that Italian food's going to be good. And it's one of those ones. How many people have you told about that place?
Oh, it's incredible. The place is called Tuscany, and Franco is the chef. Lena is the host. And if you ever get a chance to go to, it's a cooking school in Tuscany, I highly, highly recommend it.
We're going to have to find the link for that and pin it, because it sounds fantastic. And I'm just now thinking of truffles. Thank you for that, Laura. What a super story. Thank you very much. Mercedes, hello. I've been looking forward to speaking to you as well today. I know you are a big fan of a kebab in Basildon.
If If you
And
want culture, go to Basildon.
Well, I think you might need to share a British story about kebabs in Basildon. But before you share your favourite stories about British hospitality, Mercedes, who are you? Where are you? And what do you do?
Hello, everybody. Good to be here. I realized it was 10:30, and I was like, wait, I got a call. So Mercedes coming at you from sunny San Diego, the directors of sales and events for the Wood Group in Pacific Beach. And it's a very gloomy day. There's a fire nearby, so it's been very interesting. It's gloom in a bad sense, but super excited for this call, considering I live with 3 Brits. My daughters are both half Brit, and then their dad is full Brit. And I get called cheeky quite a bit. my daughter will say, Mommy, you're so cheeky. And I'm like, you do realize you're not supposed to say that to me, right? Or she'll correct me if I say garage, and she'll say, it's a garage, and with her little British accent. But yeah, it's fun. I think for me, the top thing when I went to London, though, was a salt beef bagel. And like forever still lives in my head rent free is a salt beef bagel. Like we've tried to recreate it because their dad's a chef. And so I've had him recreate it, but it's not the same. It's not the same. I think when it comes to hospitality, though, it really is all about the people. I've traveled, unlike Eric, I've traveled a lot. So I did a Portugal trip by myself. I did Spain. I've done Japan, Thailand, China, Jamaica, all of the islands over there. So I've traveled.
None of the hospitality compares to Basildon, I'm assuming.
Well, so Bas Vegas caught me for a surprise. So English people are usually very proper and so sweet, and maybe that's just the English people I've encountered. I see in the movies that the gangsters do exist, but I've never seen a gangster in England myself. And when you go to Basildon, you end up in a version of Vegas. I would put it as like old Las Vegas. It's a little rundown. It's not flashy, and but everybody's still out there at like 40 years old trying to start fights in the middle of the road. My favorite bar, though, was the Wetherspoons in Basildon. Top notch. Top notch. So for everybody that doesn't know, the Wetherspoons is a big place in the UK. And the Wetherspoons in Basildon is voted, I believe, number 100 on worst places to go to. I walked in there and waited, I'd probably put it about 35 minutes for a pint, and I still didn't get my pint. I literally stood there at the bar, and everybody's standing at the bar, and we're all just kind of looking at each other like, this isn't happening. Is it happening? Are we happening? It's not happening. And then we kind of kept looking at each other, and then shortly we like all locked eyes, and we're like, okay, we should leave now because it's not happening. So lots of fun. England was a lot of fun.
I will say,
Richard, my sister told me about a thing in Wetherspoons. I'm from Leeds in the north of England, right? Wetherspoons is like it's one of our
posh in Leeds.
My sister told me
concert ever, the Who Live at Leeds. That's my go-to. I don't know if I ever said that. I'm jumping in for that to prop the Leeds. Yep. That's where any historic concert you could be taken back to, the Who Live at Leeds.
Yeah, Michael Jackson was the one as well in Roundy Park. 100,000 people was pretty epic. Where was I going? Wetherspoons. Yeah, here we go. Here's a digital hospitality for you. So they did a thing at Christmas to get people to book Christmas parties. So you went to a Wetherspoons, you were in a Wetherspoons, and you posted on this Wetherspoons Facebook group. We're in Leeds, Wetherspoons, we're out, and basically you had to do a sub story of why you couldn't buy any more drinks on the works due. So like my sister went on there going, my boss is tight. He said that the bars dried up with no more bars, and people could go and pay it forward to get you a cocktail in Wetherspoons. And basically basically the Wetherspoons bar guy, I won't say waiter because that's been very extreme for a Wetherspoons, but the bar guy, you then just brought like this huge picture of cocktail to the table that some guy in, I don't know, down south or something had paid forward through this Facebook group. And apparently it was like viral in December. Obviously, I don't hang out in places like Wetherspoons, so I wouldn't know what was happening on a Facebook group. But apparently it was pretty viral about how all this thing was going on in the Christmas parties of people paying it forward when the bosses got tight and shut the bar off, and their works do still had an open bar. So people would be going, is our bar tab still open? Yeah, send this to these guys in Leeds on table X. Theirs is dried up. So there you go. There's a Wetherspoons digital hospitality story for you. I'm going to share one little story about Wetherspoons. It's a chain of pubs. I just don't even want to go there. But one of the things that's really funny about it is the guy who set it up, when he was at school, his teacher said to him, "You're not going to amount to anything." And he named all the pubs Wetherspoons after the teacher that said that to him. So every town in the UK now has a Wetherspoons named after the teacher that said the guy would not amount to anything, which I always find a great story to share. Well,
one little tip, by the way, one little tip. If you are going to Wetherspoons, I have to say that they actually were probably one of the first pubs to have a mobile app for ordering. So a staff member of mine left about 5 years ago, and he wanted to go to a Wetherspoons for his leaving drinks. Wasn't my choice, obviously. And we sat in the corner, and we were sitting waiting, and the bar was like threefold. It was a Friday night, central London, and I looked down, and there was a little thing, a card, and it must have just been launched. Order your drinks. You still have to go get them, but I managed to order my drinks. I didn't wait half an hour. I had to push 7 people out the way to get my drinks from the bar. But there is an app for Wetherspoons.
That is a top tip for Mercedes for next time she's in Basildon.
Next time I'm in Las Vegas, I'll have to do that.
It's always educational.
Also, you guys aren't mentioning the most positive part about Wetherspoons.
The long walk to the toilet. There's a whole Instagram thing. So one of the things that Wetherspoons is famous for is the toilet's like 100 miles away from the bar. And there's loads of things on Instagram where people have created sort of viral reels of somebody opening a door, climbing mountains, and eventually finding the Wetherspoons toilet. Is that what you meant, Mercedes?
I mean, I meant the like 2 pound pints, but yeah, we'll go with the toilet.
Yeah, the toilet's always a good one.
Richard, we forgot one major staple. One major staple we forgot to talk about.
Go on.
And it's the cheeky Nando's.
Oh, cheeky Nando's. I mean, I know everybody gets excited.
I can't believe it. We didn't even talk about it.
Everybody gets excited about pepper lunch. But in the UK, we have a Nando's. And what is amazing about Nando's is a cheeky Nando's has become part of the British dialect or description. How would you describe the food in Nando's, gents? To our international visitors, and I'll pin a link to Nando's.
I think it's just great chicken, just great chicken.
There
are 45 restaurants in the US for Nando's, by the way. I just checked it out.
It is a rapidly expanding QSR. It's everywhere, and they do it really, really, really well. And what's interesting about it, my teenager would love to go with his mates. But also, you kind of celebrities, footballers, after a dozen pints.
Someone's had a wedding in a Nando's. A celebrity had a wedding in a Nando's. And an interesting fact for you as well. My South African friend, when he came over here, I took him to Nando's, and he looked at me and he said, "This isn't Nando's." And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Nando's in South Africa, which is where it came from, is literally a QSR like McDonald's, not McDonald's, sorry, tiny QSR like Pret, like these tiny.
Yeah.
There's literally where you go order and you take your food home. You never sit in Nando's. So in here, it's a completely different Nando's than it is over there, and it's just yeah.
Wow. I hope you've enjoyed our trip into global hospitality. And one of the things that we've often debated is the terrible use of our American and North American friends over various words. And we suddenly realized that us Brits, who come from different parts of the islands, have different words for describing things. And Mercedes, I don't know if your partner's in earshot, but in the morning, if you were to have a bacon sandwich, you might call it a bacon butty. And you might put it between bread or different types of bread, but we use lots of different names. And Scott and I were talking about this because he used one I've not heard of in years. So we're going to go round for our tip, takeaway, homework assignment. But before we do that, Adam and Scott, tell me, is it a bap, a butty? Come on, let's do some name dropping here. Adam?
Is it a bap or a butty? I mean, what other name dropping or like,
what would you say if you're at home?
It's gonna be a butty, always.
Not a cob?
No.
Scott?
In Leeds, it's a bread cake. No question.
What?
And we also call an alleyway a ginnel.
A what?
We call an alleyway a ginnel. There you go. But it's a bread cake.
Butty. Bap. So, it is always good to have good baps or a good butty in the morning, but definitely not in Yorkshire where it'd be a bread cake.
Dear.
Shocking.
Ketchup or brown sauce?
Ketchup.
Oh.
Ketchup. Mercedes, do you know if you could put in the chat or let us know if your other half prefers a bap or a butty? That'd be great to know.
It's a buddy.
The war of words continues. So in order to stop an international incident, let's close this room down. Elizabeth, tip, takeaway, homework assignment, and do you prefer baps or butties?
Well, I live in Greenville, South Carolina, and I think what you're talking about here is like a biscuit, which I know is not what you use. Because when we go to order breakfast sandwiches in our local places, it's a bacon, egg, and cheese biscuit. It's it's a Cajun filet biscuit from Bojangles. And so I did want to make the distinction that we would not be asking for the same thing over here versus over there. So just throwing out biscuits in there. No, this is a great conversation. It was incredible. Because I was thinking through some of the stories and some of, the wonderful things I've experienced. And I hope I could do this really fast, but because some of our trips to Israel, we've made friends with people there that have hosted us for years, really since the 70s, 60s, 70s. My grandparents had connected. But one of our trips there, we were taking a boat on the Sea of Galilee from Capernaum to Tiberias. And when we were pulling up to the shoreline, normally it's just a dock and we get off and go get on our bus and go somewhere. But our host had set up a white tablecloth, like dinner out beside the Sea of Galilee with candlelight and other things. And one thing I really remember is my grandfather was a fisherman, but at that time at Sea of Galilee, you couldn't fish, and only the commercial fishermen could use nets and that type of stuff. But he had made special arrangements. So my grandfather, who's now passed away, but got to fish in the Sea of Galilee, just off the shoreline there, and then come and have a beautiful dinner with our like 50, 60 people that he had set up this amazing experience for. And so that unforgettable, he had known my grandfather for years, and this was it ended up being his last trip to Israel, and got to do that. Anyway, so I just want to say that paying attention to details and then making things happen for people that it's unexpected is what hospitality is all about. It's back to you, Richard.
Yeah, I love that. Love that. Jason, tip, takeaway, homework assignment. And are you a cob or a bread cake person?
I like Dean's pigs in the blanket. He called it out, man. There it is.
I can't believe we missed that. It's one of those classic British dishes.
I love it. Dean nailed it. I'm following that. So my takeaway, my tip and takeaway in this tip is I hear these stories and I'll admit, Eric's talking about the flight attendant and, we're hearing all these great stories of people sitting down. My tip is I'm careful, though, I always was as a restaurant leader, to not let hospitality with someone destroy the service with 10 other people. And I'm constantly sitting there thinking, it's amazing that you're having this, or Maxim, right? It's great that they're sitting and spending this time. We just also need to make sure that the train keeps moving, that somebody isn't waiting to put their order in and get going. And so it's always about finding that balance between giving good hospitality, but not at the suffering of service from somebody else. And that's just my tip throughout this, because I kind of say I put service over hospitality to the point that I say, it's great that you can remember my name, but I need to make sure there's a fork there that I don't have to ask for when my salad arrives. Let's start with the baseline and build off of it. So that's my addition to the conversation at the end.
Thank you, Jason. There's plenty of places that could learn from that. Maxim, welcome. Your tip, takeaway, homework assignment, and any advice you want to share?
Excuse me?
Yeah, we got you.
Was there anything a story that somebody shared that stood out to you, or something that you're gonna do after this call?
Actually, what Jason just said, I think that's a very smart point. For a business, and I think that's really smart and valuable. I like this idea and I like this approach, because of course, if you are very hospitable to one person, one certain man, and the rest 10 of them are just without their good salad or without any attention of waiters, etc., it's bad business, and actually it's bad hospitality. It's better to serve 10 people 7 out of 10 instead of serving 1 10 out of 10 and 9 of them 2 out of 10. So Jason, thanks for sharing. I love your perspective.
Thank you, Maxim. Well, welcome to the community. We look forward to seeing you again next Wednesday. Eric, tip, takeaway, homework assignment.
Well, the conversation about all of the words you were coming up with, somewhere in there I heard bacon. So I'm just going to fast forward to all of the you made up words things, and we're just going to go with a BLT. But for mine, I want a fresh diced ghost pepper on it, because if it's not spicy, it tastes funny. So I'll stick with that. Tip, takeaway, homework assignment. No, I'll circle back to the let's make up words. What do you call the big green pepper that's about this big? It's a pepper. It's not spicy. It's about this big. It's a bell pepper.
Yeah.
It's not a capsicum or all the other words you could make up for it. It's a bell pepper, because the little thing that breaks loose in it rings like a bell.
Isn't it just a pepper?
Well, I don't know. It depends on where you're from. I mean, I just wanted to see if you guys were making up words.
No, we're all good there.
Okay, good.
Apparently, there's a new herb called oregano, which I've never heard of before. It's oregano. Come on, people.
We have that one over here.
Shocking. Absolutely shocking. And Laura, who's been to Italy, will no doubt be pronouncing it correctly, Eric. So, Laura, you're nicely set up to pronounce oregano correctly with your tip, takeaway, homework assignment.
Okay. My homework assignment, since I was thinking about coming to London, is to do a little bit more research about how I'm going to do Ireland, because our goal is to come for the Ryder Cup in 2027 in County Limerick, Ireland. And do either of our 3 Brits have any connections to Ireland, or is that a pretty easy? I'm sure you've been, right? Okay. All right. So that's my homework.
I'm going to hand that one over to Scott or Adam. I've only been to Dublin once. I'm going again in the autumn, and I'm really pleased you're coming for the Ryder Cup to watch another European triumph. But I'll leave Scott or Adam to comment on Irish hospitality.
I would be flying into Heathrow, come and see us in London, and then fly out to Dublin. It'll take about an hour, something like that. So you're better off just getting one of the cheap connector flights out to Dublin, and then from Dublin you'll be able to get yourself to Limerick pretty easy. But Dublin's a really good night out. Or should I say trip? It's a lovely city to see.
I like Guinness. It. Thank you.
Mercedes, we know what your homework assignment is. Download the Wetherspoons app, which nobody's ever said before on digital hospitality. You've offended a great many people in the UK with your story. And I will find on Instagram the Wetherspoons toilet walk of shames and send that to you. But do you have any other tips, takeaway, or homework assignments for the room?
I think we've all come to the conclusion that when I go back to London, because I visit often, none of you guys want to hang out with me because you know where I will be. Anyways, I thought that pigs in a blanket isn't called pigs in a blanket back in the UK. It's called, what is it called? A sausage roll.
No, different thing. Different thing.
Sausage rolls are better. That's the problem.
Sausage rolls are wrapped in pastry, and
we'll take you
pigs
to
in
Greg's.
blanket is wrapped in a bacon.
We didn't talk about Greg's.
Do you know what, Adam? I've just discovered in St. Pancras that there is a Gale's, and I had a Gale's sausage roll. Cost 4 times as much as a Greg's one, but oh my gosh, it was beautiful.
What was the name
So we
of that
can all
place?
agree a sausage roll is better.
Greg's is
no, before that, St. Pancras.
Hold on, I have to say one thing. It's the funniest thing ever. I'm so sorry. I was watching TikTok the other day with my kid, and they were having an absolute giggle, and I didn't understand why. And there was this girl, a lovely American lady, outside Greg's, and she was saying, "Hey, everyone, there's a place called GR Eggs." And they were laughing.
I've seen that. It's genius. Scott and Adam, do you want to share your final British hospitality wisdom with the room before we shut this chaos down?
Adam, over to you.
So I think this was another British term. Well, it was a great chinwag that we've had across the last hour. It's been very interesting to listen to everyone's stories, which is wonderful. I don't need to do any more British talk because I can talk forever. But takeaway homework is get a cup of Yorkshire tea and enjoy a cup of Yorkshire tea, because you can't go better than a cup of Yorkshire tea. That's it.
Oh, that's a nice pass to you there, Scott. Send it, knock it in. No,
I think I could talk about Yorkshire tea all day long. I take it with me everywhere I go because I don't trust any other tea. So whenever if you ever see me traveling, there'll always be Yorkshire tea in my case. Where was it? Yeah, I think, to wrap it up nicely, I think traveling is an amazing luxury. I think sometimes we all take that for granted, and you can see some of the most amazing places in the world, meet the most amazing people in the world, and fill an hour and a half with just a fraction of stories that you've built up over time. And I think that if that isn't inspiration to do more, see more, speak more, and experience more, then nothing is. So it's been an amazing episode, and I'm sure Stover will be glad to hand it back to Shawn, who has much better timekeeping next week. But it's been a really inspiring conversation.
Thank you, Scott. Well, talking of Shawn, our hostess with the mostess, as we would say in the UK, Shawn is back next Wednesday, where he's going to be joined by special guest star Jason Berkowitz, talking about the Accountability Club. First rule of Accountability Club.
We talk about the Accountability Club.
Second rule of Accountability Club.
We found an accountability buddy to ask them how they're doing with their Accountability Club.
To find out more, tune in next Wednesday. That's 6 p.m. London time, 3 p.m. East Coast time, midday, 9 a.m. California time.
10 a.m.
10 a.m. They've changed it again. What's going on?
And 1 p.m. Eastern.
5 p.m. Eastern. I'm fired.
It was going well.
We were doing so well. We looked really professional. Great British hospitality. I blame Gordon Ramsay and his fucking program. Bye, everyone. See you next week.
See you later.
Good stuff. Later, Brits.
Bye.
They're all.
Thanks,
Well
guys.
done. Well done.
I can't believe I got the time wrong.
We really got to talk about how you Brits all travel with your tea. That's the real question.
I'm going to have to find the
Okay, I'm up.